Hello again and welcome to another episode of Mordian Mondays. This is episode 42, and as we all know, 42 is the answer to life, the universe and everything. And whoever gets that reference, please put it down in the comment section below. But without further ado, let's crack on with today's episode. So I have been continuing with the bringing up to the full standard of 1st Platoon. So for those that don't know, when I started the project of restoring my Mordian 50th rifles, obviously when I was first redoing the models, I was doing a good job, but I hadn't quite developed my painting skills completely, so I wasn't doing things like edge highlighting or dry brushing or doing a proper job on the basing, and so 1st Platoon missed out on all that good stuff, and it wasn't until I got to 2nd Platoon where I really started implementing those techniques. So I've gone back over 1st Platoon, and great milestone for this week, guys. I have completed all of the line infantry squads for 1st Platoon. So that means that I still have some work to do, but the 6 infantry squads that make up 1st Platoon / 1st Battalion, if you're going off the 40k org chart these days, detachment chart. So that is what I've done, and it's looking really good. So I've got 60 infantry from 1st Platoon now fully edge highlighted and dry brushed. And for those of you that have spotted the interesting model from this squad, there is another of the last chances in this squad, and it's the model that's up here now. And last chances are they're now out of production, but they're the old metal models, and they're actually meant to represent sort of rogues and rapscallions and a penal legion, basically. But I like to mix them into my regular Mordian Iron Guard squads because it breaks up the pretty similar poses that otherwise you would find in those squads. Second thing that I worked on this week for the restoration project was the heavy support squad for the 1st Platoon, which is the Mortar unit. Now, I really enjoyed doing this, guys. These are actually really classic sculpts and quite difficult to get your hands on these days. They've not been produced in a very long time. But one thing I did really notice, and I hadn't really come across this before, or really thought, I should say I haven't really thought about it before, it's just how absolutely massive the mortar shell is that these guys are popping in those mortars. This looks more like a heavy artillery shell. Now, it's just interesting the way how the molds have changed. And if you actually look at the current Cajun mortar shell, it's tiny, absolutely tiny. It's probably the size of like a couple of grenades stuck together, basically. But yeah, a bit more realistic. Whereas with these old sculpts in the 90s, I guess they really did believe that 40k was over the top and ridiculous, and so a mortar shell, a heavy artillery shell, is the equivalent to a mortar shell, apparently in 40k. But really enjoyed these sculpts. All 3 of them done now, and so all I have left to do on 1st Platoon now is the veteran squad with the 3 plasma guns, and the auxiliary squad, which is the Ogrins, my converted Ogrins. Quick swig of the old iron brew. Now, I did try and get the veterans done in time for this week's video, but I didn't quite do it. But I did get all the edge highlighting done. And what's really interesting is these veterans, which I'm going to be working on for next week, are actually the first full squad that I ever painted up for the Mordian Mondays. And these veterans were actually donated to me by a supporter of the Mordian Glory channel, which is Sean Brabant. And what's really funny is that whilst they were the first squad that I painted, we're coming up to next week's video will be the year anniversary roughly of the Great Mordian Restoration Project, and they're actually going to be the last squad that I do for the full year. So it's quite interesting how things come full circle. Really appreciate, and I said it in the announcement video, and I'll say it again now. One of the greatest motivators for getting this project finally off the ground was my channel supporters like Sean. I've been umming and ahhing about doing it for ages, and I'd mentioned it in a few videos, and Sean was like, you know what, here's a squad of 10 veterans. I've customized them with really cool bits from different kits and with Victoria miniature heads, and I hope that these guys will inspire you to do the Great Mordian Restoration Project. And It did. It totally did. I thought, you know what, I got to put my finger out. I've got to put my finger out. I've got to do this for the channel supporters. And now I can't just sit on this squad. I've got to pull my finger out. And it's the same with other projects that I've got going on. I've got my deathcore, which I've got received a really generous gift of deathcore models recently, which I need to get on, and that will kickstart my deathcore of Kree project. And it's just, I won't go off on a tangent too much, guys, but I just want to say that the projects and just the general channel motivation, pretty much all of it comes from you guys. You know, it's really, I wouldn't be doing this series if I didn't have the support that I do have from you guys. So you may have also noticed, obviously, as the pictures have been scrolling through, there's a bit of an elephant in the room, which is the bolt action guy that I've painted up this week, which is the other thing that I want to talk about in today's episode. So I mentioned last week that I've been looking at getting into bolt action, and now, you know, that I have got a comfortable sort of 2,500 point army of my Mordians painted up, I don't want to get burnt out, so I'm looking at maybe changing up and painting something completely different to what I've done before, something that's not 40k. And so I went out, and, well, I didn't go out, I went online and ordered the some Japanese bolt action stuff. And I got myself the rule book and the codex, essentially, and just a box of basic Japanese infantry. And I thought what would be quite interesting today, guys, would be, because a lot of you said that you were very interested in seeing the bolt action side stuff, which is cool. And I'm definitely going to start doing a few bolt action videos just here and there. Got to get the guys painted up, and I've got to actually get a few games under my belt as well. But I thought what I'd do today is I would go through and just talk about what it was like pretty much building my first bolt action kit. I had dabbled in Soviets before, but it wasn't, I didn't, not really. And so I'm treating these Japanese soldiers the first time when I consciously was passionate about an army that I was getting involved in that wasn't for 40k. Soviets, I kind of got them, and then I didn't really like the kit, and so I didn't put a lot of effort into it. Whereas with my Japanese, I put quite a lot of love and a bit of labour into actually building up the box of models and painting my first one. So first thing I would say really struck me, and it is a bit of a controversial point, but we all know it, is I was struck by how many dudes I got in the box. So before I even built or painted anything, I was really struck by like the value for money I got for my bolt action. So I bought my guys for £25, and that was just a basic box of infantry, and in there I got 30 guys, which is, that's pretty good. I mean, if you go to Games Workshop and try and buy a box of 10 guardsmen, it's going to cost you 20 quid these days. And I'm old enough when I clearly remember buying and building boxes of guardsmen when you used to get 20 guardsmen for £15. So, and that's in like 10 years. So things really have changed. But what I noticed with the bolt action is like, wow, like, you know, you do get value for money when you're buying outside of Games Workshop. I'm not saying that's a huge feather in the cap for bolt action. It's more of a black mark against Games Workshop, to be honest. Because I think with most of the miniature sets, you probably do get a bit more than 10 guys for 20 quid. But so that was the amazing thing. 25 quid, 30 dudes. And then when I opened the box up, the amount of options that I had was also really, really impressive. So each sprue came, there were 5 sprues, and each sprue came with enough to build 6 dudes. And 5 of those dudes were like standing up or kneeling, and there was actually a dude that was lying down prone. And then I was going through the different bits, and in the box, not only did you get enough to build your rifleman, but you also got enough to build like a support team. It was like getting a special weapon, but the only special weapon you got in the box, to be fair, was a light machine gun, like a heavy stubber kind of thing, but. it was, so you only got the one special weapon, to be fair, but it was cool that you got 5 of them rather than what, like the 2 that you get in the current Guardsman box. And I'm not going to keep comparing it to 40k. I'm not going to keep comparing it. So, well, I might do. So you got that, and then you also got the ability to build both sergeants in the box and also officers. So it was kind of like, and they even have a little pamphlet in the box which says, like, this box is your basic Japanese infantry kit, but it's flexible enough that you can build all your command options out of this as well, and all like your little advisors and whatnot, which I thought was really cool. So unlike, you know, I'm going to compare to 40k. Unlike with 40k, where it's like you get your infantry box and then you have to buy your command squad box, with this it was like you can build it all from here. We do sell the command bits separately if you want to get them, if you prefer those sculpts, but we have given you the bits in your basics box that you can pretty much build everything you need from this, and you don't need to go and buy the extra stuff, which I thought was really cool. And what it actually made me do was go, I actually want to go and buy that extra stuff. It's like they've reverse psychologied me. I totally get it, and I'm willing, you know, reverse psychology me all the way, Warlord games. But with 40k, you buy a box and you're like, fucking hell, this is expensive. I gotta get every penny out of this. I gotta squeeze every penny out of it. Whereas with Warlord, it's like, well, I got my box of dudes, and actually I've got pretty much all the infantry I need here for pretty cheap. So I will go and buy some of those interesting skulls. So I got the money left over, which is pretty awesome. I mean, to put it this way, for what I built, you know, if you buy a box of 30 dudes from Games Workshop, it's going to cost you 60 quid. You buy a box of 30 dudes from Warlord, it costs you 25. I mean, and you can, that's not with a third party retailer discount. So you could easily get it. If I went to like Triple Helix or some other places that offer 20-25% off, I could get it for 20 quid. So it's a third of the price. So it's pretty cool. Now I don't want to go on about that too much, because it's just I've made my point there, which is you get a lot more. So I will go now through what I got in the box, which is I got enough for 25 guys standing up, 5 guys lying down prone. There were so many bits I couldn't use them all. You got a light machine gun per sprue. You got a submachine gun per sprue. You got officer kit per sprue, so pistol and samurai sword. And then you've got a flag per sprue, which is pretty cool. You don't need to use all the flags. And actually you got 2 LMGs per sprue. Sorry, I forgot. You had enough to build 2 LMGs per sprue, because you had a prone LMG and you had LMG which is being sort of fired from the hip kind of style, which is pretty cool. And then you got the stuff to make a lunge mine, which is basically a suicide mine, which is a big bomb on the end of a stick, and the Japanese would ram it into the side of the tank and it would explode the tank, and then the backwash would typically kill the dude as well. But that's what the Japanese had to do. They didn't have a lot of anti-tank weaponry. I'm only just learning this all now. And one thing I would say that's great about bot action is it's really encouraged me to go and learn a bit more about World War II, which I'm only just scratching the surface, because there's a lot more there than I had originally even bothered to try and find out about. Which is cool. So I'm going to be learning all about that. So loads of bits per sprue. You got stuff. You got enough for like a musician, but I don't think the musicians do anything. I think it's just a bugle because it looks cool, which is great. Loads of bits like spare katanas in the sheath, katanas out the sheath. Loads of different knives and bayonets and different kinds of just usual stuff. Loads of different bits. And what also is included was these really nifty little flags. Now I'm going to clear up any speculation now. I did not paint the flag on the rifle. What Warlord does is they don't give you with the Japanese kit, you don't get transfers. You get little cut out flags that you literally you cut them out, and then you can hang them on the end of your guns, like this guy has. Not this guy, but you know, the one in the picture. And also you get flags that you can put on the banners as well. So you can paint them yourselves, or you can just use the pre-printed ones that they give you. They are a little fiddly, I will be honest. They're a little tricky, but there was a couple that I messed up. But after playing around with a couple, I was able to get them to work fairly easily, and they actually look really, really cool. I wasn't sure about it at first, and then when I put it on, I was like, yeah, I got to keep this. It looks so good. So that's what I got in the box. It was really fun. So how did I find... So what did I notice difference-wise between the two kits? You know, between GW stuff and Warlord stuff? Well, it says it's heroic scale, but it's all really slender in comparison to 40k stuff. Like my Mordians, which are small sculpts by comparison to today's Cadian sculpts, look gargantuan next to these bolt action guys. So I think they are heroic scale because they've got the big hands and the big heads, but I don't think they're the same scale, you know, GW super heroic scale or whatever it's called. But it's not super realistic. It's definitely heroic. The hands are pretty big, and the heads are pretty big. So it's halfway. I would say it's halfway between GW and normal scale miniatures, which is cool. I found that the kits had a really decent amount of flexibility in the poses if you had a vivid enough imagination. And that I was able to, out of a box of 30 dudes, I was able to make 30 unique poses. And I didn't use all the bits up. I think you could probably, I did start, some of them were only just unique though, bear in mind. But I would say that overall, you could probably do 2 boxes of guys and get enough unique poses out of 2 boxes before you're really going to start seeing recycled poses. So good amount of flexibility in that, and yeah, dream to build. To be honest, guys, no more. Even though the models were a bit more slender and the equipment was a bit more spindly, it wasn't difficult building up these models. Now, when I built my Soviets, they were a friggin' nightmare to build, I'm not going to lie, and I think the Japanese kit might be a slightly later one, because with the Soviet kit, from what I remember, is there was no one was holding the guns. It was like empty hands, and so you had to cut the guns out and put them in the hands of the guys and then try and glue the arms onto the models, and it was a flipping nightmare. So I think the Japanese kit is the later kit, and the weapon, but the arms are molded like they are now. You just glue them straight onto the body, but way better, way better, totally better. So yeah, the building of I had no issues building any of the models, and like I said, there's a big variety of poses. So what did I get? Same for the painting. It's some of these other models, you find it can be difficult to paint them because the paint starts flowing into the corners and you've got to wash them first. Total nightmare. None of the issues with the Warlord models. I undercoated it. So yeah, you know, I'll go into what paint scheme I did for the guys. So I undercoated the whole thing in Chaos. Is it Chaos Black or is it Abaddon Black these days? I used a brush. I didn't want to do. I couldn't do my spray painting inside, so I just dry brushed it. I just put it on with a brush, old school. So I did everything in Abaddon Black. Then I went over the main part of the uniform in what the hell is it called? Xandri Dust. Xandri Dust, and then the brown of the equipment, I used Gorthor brown, which is interesting because I normally use that for like my skin colour on my Mordians, but it actually worked much better as a equipment webbing colour. And then for the rifle, I used Mornfang brown, and the silver on the model was Ironbreaker, and the green was Catalan green, and the skin tone was just Cadian flesh tone washed in Seraphim Sepia, which is my generic go-to human-looking skin tone. It does white dudes, it does tan dudes, it does everything in between. Like it's pretty generic, that. But what I did is I really lathered on the Seraphim Sepia to try and make it look like these guys have been in the Pacific and they're all, you know, they've lots of sunlight and everything. So that's what I tried to do. I'm not that good with skin tones, to be honest. I do a couple of different ones, but that's it. So what I noticed straight away was it was a super easy paint scheme, and I'm not planning on doing all the fine detail that I do on my Mordians on these guys, because this is just a side project, just a bit of fun, and I just want to be able to smash the models out to a good tabletop standard. Now, the other reason is with 40k and with Mordians especially, you can kind of go really jazzy with the paint scheme, and you can definitely, you can do your color, you can do your equipment in different colors, and your guns don't need to be realistic colored or anything like that. But with World War II stuff, I'm not going full historical, but I am trying to put at least a modicum of effort into painting the models historically. So I did the uniform as best I could, and I based it. I just used the colours that I had, to be honest. The only bit I'm not super happy with is the helmet. Now, it's because I think that the helmet should be the same colour as the uniform. But the problem I've kind of found with World War II miniatures already when it comes to paint schemes is, if you to do it properly realistically, well then, the webbing is the same colour as the uniforms. Everything's green, because that's the whole point. Everything's meant to blend in and match with it. It's meant to be like a drab uniform. You don't want bright white bits. We moved away from that well before World War II. So if I was to paint this bolt action dude accurately, the helmet would be the same colour as the uniform, the straps for the webbing would be the same colour, the pouches would be a little darker but pretty similar, and same for the leg wrappings and the boots. He'd pretty much be the same colour up and down, and the only bit I would change on him would be the skin tone and the rifle, and that's it. And there would be it'd all be just slight different variations of brown, and I can't do it. I would find that so boring if I basically just painted the whole model tan and the rifle brown and silver, and that would, with a bit of slightly different brown on like the water bottle. I just couldn't do it. It wasn't fun for me to paint. So I was like, you know what? I want it to look good and realistic, but not necessarily super historically accurate, just vaguely realistic. So that's what I did. So I painted the tan uniform pretty good, and then I thought, you know what? I will use brown. I'll use Gawthor brown for all the equipment leather and for his boots, and then which technically should be all the same colour as his uniform, and then I will do his leg wrappings green, because when I googled it I found one picture which had green leg wrappings, and I was like, that's enough precedent for me to go off. Some dude wore them once, this dude here did it, and that's it pretty much. I was like, that was my thinking behind it, and fortunately bolt action, like I mentioned before, it is a historical game, but it doesn't take itself too seriously, which is really nice. You haven't got quite as many ribbon counters in bolt action. So there we go, guys. That is my experience with building a box of 30 Japanese soldiers and painting one of them. So my thinking is that I've done my research, and I've got my 1,000-point list planned out, and it's pure infantry with some support teams, which is me all over. And 1,000 points is your standard bolt action game size, and at 1,000 points my list is like 60 dudes and four different support things, like an AT gun and a bigger machine gun and some other bits like a sniper team and whatnot. And yeah, so in total my 1,000-point army is like 70 dudes, and I was like, I can knock that out in a month easily if I want to, because I'm not doing all the edge highlighting and stuff. I'm keeping it drab and realistic-ish. So there we go. Last thing I should say, so that's before I move on to the bit I was going to move on to, So that is my plan for what action, and I'm going to have a 1,000-point army, and then that shouldn't take me too long to build up. And then when quarantine is over, I can try out a few bolt action games and do some unit reviews and do a bit of a faction review. I don't imagine I am going to expand much outside of a 1,000-point army. I might go to 1,250 points to have a bit of leeway, but I'm not going to go like full retard down the bolt action route. At most, what I will probably do is have one Japanese Axis army for 1,250 points roughly, and then have one Allies army of some kind, and then I'll have one of each. Maybe, but more than likely I'll probably just commit to having, if I was going to go to the point where I was going to collect a whole new army, I'd probably just stick to my guns and just expand my Japanese a bit more. Probably. We'll see. We'll see. This channel might go totally off the rails and everyone loves bolt action so much. That's all they want to see. That's all they want to see. And if that happens, then I'll have to come up with a different name because it won't really make much sense. But I really doubt that's going to happen. So there we go, guys. So I think there'll probably be a little. This was a very bolt action heavy day this week. I appreciate that that's not to everyone's liking. So I think I will balance it a bit better next week. But I'm just excited about the new game system and the things that I've built and the things that I've learned. I like learning things and I like sharing it with you guys. So there we go. Please put down in the comment section below, what do you think of the Mordians this week? What do you think of the ridiculously oversized mortar shell? And what do you think of the bolt action stuff? Do you want to see more of it? Do you want to see less of it? What is bolt action? Go and research it, you lazy bastard. So yeah, put that down in the comment section. One thing I will say before I go, if anyone is curious about what I used for the basing material of this guy, because it's quite a bright green, it's very different, obviously, in comparison to the Mordian stuff, is I went old school and I went back and got myself some flock. So rather than using texture paint, I used flock. And I went and bought the Army Painter Battlefield Green Grass because I thought that looked pretty generic and would be good on any World War II battlefield. It can cover jungly stuff, it can cover fieldy stuff. It's a good generic colour. So Army Painter Battlefield Green Grass. There we go. And I got mine from Amazon because, again, even though I hate Amazon after the debacle with my bloody computer when they buggered me around when I was trying to build my new computer, but unfortunately those bastards are the only ones that seem to be stocking anything at the moment anymore. They really obviously have been stockpiling things in those massive warehouses, so they're the only place I can bloody find anything. And unfortunately my desire to paint cool stuff outweighs my desire to boycott Amazon slightly, so I have unfortunately to buy stuff from them. But oh well, I'm not such a man the way I'm going to cut my nose to spite my face. You win this round, Amazon. Anyway, without further ado, thank you for watching this video. Please leave loads of comments, let me know what you think, and of course I will see you guys next time.